I had an awesome question come in from a member earlier this week when we were coaching them on some deadlifts. Listen, we talk a ton about the lumbar spine, so the lower part of your back here, in terms of keeping it nice and neutral, not only when we're bracing for the deadlift, but even during the lift, not allowing our pelvis to start to tuck under at all as we peel the bumpers off the floor. So I think we're pretty well versed in that concept. However, the member came up and asked me this question, and this was awesome to hear because it shows me a couple things, but one of the things that made me the most excited was that they're actually cueing in with what's going on in their body, making that mind-muscle connection, but also realizing hey, is anything specifically in my spine, but really anywhere in my body, being pulled out of position when I'm at heavier loads. So the question was hey, Austin, I don't really have any problem keeping my lumbar spine flat. However, it's the middle part of my back, which we call the thoracic spine, and my shoulder blades, I felt like those are being pulled forward as I started to peel the bumpers off the floor. So something that we cue a lot, almost anytime we're doing any sort of upper body pushing and pulling, is the safest and the strongest position for that ball and socket shoulder joint to be in, which is not only just down, but pulled back. So you hear the cue a lot of times, all right, pull your shoulders down and back. When we're say doing a classic barbell bench press, that's a really good position you want your shoulder blade in. However, on the deadlift, at lighter loads, you may be able to hold your shoulder blades in this down, but especially in the back position. But as the weight gets heavier, these muscles in between your scapula, those are not going to be strong enough to stabilize your shoulder blades in the back position. So the prime movers in the deadlift, we have our hamstrings, our glutes, and our erectors. Those are going to be the ones we want to target, and we want to actually put our scapula and our thoracic spine from the get-go in the strongest position possible to pull the most amount of weight off the floor. So the strongest position is not back. It's actually forward with the shoulder blades, which may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but it does not mean that I'm just going to be really loose and relaxed with my shoulder blades. Instead, I still want to apply the same principle, but just pull my shoulder blades down. So when I'm standing, let me grab my towel here. Some coaches like to use, they'll ball up a towel and put it underneath someone's armpit, and you're thinking about squeezing the towel. That can sometimes be helpful. Sometimes people do a tennis ball or talk about getting tickled in the armpits, protect your armpits. I like all those cues. However, I find it's easier when you're standing to think about pulling your shoulder blades down towards the floor. But when I start to hinge, it's the same exact thing, but somewhere in my head, it just feels weird because when my torso is hinged forward, I'm not pulling them down towards the ground anymore. I'm pulling them back towards my hips. So I don't know why this has always clicked in my brain, but I imagine I'm trying to pull my shoulder blades and my arms back towards my butt this way. So when you're watching me from the side here, I'm gonna show what the incorrect setup will look like. I'm not gonna pull the weight all the way off the floor, but you can just see my shoulder blades start in the back position, and as I start to lift the weight off, they're gonna get pulled forward, which is what we don't want. And then I'll show a good rep of them in the correct just down position. So here's the incorrect way. A lot of times I see people set up, maybe they're getting really good tension, lumbar spine's looking nice and flat, and then they make the mistake, they pinch their shoulder blades together like this, and even if they're tight from the beginning, as they start to lift the bar off the ground, their lumbar spine may still stay relatively straight, but then their shoulder blades get pulled forward, they lose most of the tension in their back and all the other muscles, and then they just miss the lift. So instead, when I set up, you can see me as I hinge forward. Hopefully with the light, you'll be able to actually see my lats engage as I pull them back towards my hips. So I'm gonna wiggle my body into position, big breath, I'm gonna brace my core super tight, and then at least for me in my sequence, the last thing I do is I pull my shoulder blades towards my hips, and then I'm peeling the bumpers off the floor. So big breath, dropping my hips down. That would be what the correct shoulder blade position, and that's gonna keep your thoracic spine really strong and our shoulder blades in the correct position.